On Tuesday, we will be part of a big red wave that says enough is enough. It's time to get back to what we know works.
Doesn't seem like Republican Representative Lauren Boebert knows much about what works, because we don't even know if she's gonna win her reelection. She is still very, very close to the Democratic challenger, Adam Frisch. And while last night it appeared that he had taken the lead by 75 votes, she has unfortunately now taken the lead. This is the latest number. I checked right before going on air. She's at 50.13%. He's at 49.87%. So just hundreds of votes make the difference in this case, unfortunately. But what is shocking is that it was a close race to begin with in a Republican district that she was expected to win easily. And this could be yet another sign that even Republican voters might be sick and tired of the antics and the chaos that comes along with these MAGA chuds serving in congressional seats.
Yeah, so this is a solidly Republican district. So it's not lean Republican, it's not toss up. That's why nobody was paying attention to the race. But one thing that does happen with these celebrity not job Republicans, well, two things happen. One, because they're in the news so often, they raise a lot of money. Remember, a third of the country is whatever Trump, the craziest thing you've heard Trump say, a third of the country agrees with it completely. So when Boebert says something crazy, she raises a lot of money. People are like, oh my God, whatever the latest conspiracy theory she has. She's got almost all of them, but I don't want to give you the wrong one. And they're like, oh, that's so true, right? But what also happens is Democrats from across the country give to their opponent. So their opponents wind up raising actually too much money. Why do I say too much money? Because their races are generally not that close. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene is in a district that's like plus 30 for Republicans. You just cannot win in a district like that. So when you send money to her opponent, actually, to be honest, it would be much better served going to districts that are much closer races, right? With great candidates. So now, but having said that, it turns out, well, in this case, you were right to send it to the guy, because he's got a real shot at beating her. But again, the number one point here is the one I made on election night. The winner here is sanity. Look at all those Republicans in that Republican district going, I just can't take it. No, I'd rather vote for a Democrat than vote for Bobo the clown, as you called her.
You guys, this is so important, because Lauren Boebert was one of these Republican members of Congress who was the most vocal in wanting this country to be a Christian nationalist country. And it was terrifying, because obviously I don't want the country to go in that direction. And my feeling was maybe this is the first sign that the Republican voters are gonna start fighting for this. But the fact that Republican voters seem to have turned their backs on her, it makes me feel a little more relieved than anything else. Now, we don't know how the race is gonna turn out in the end, but again, the fact that it's so close really does say a lot about how the constituents in this particular district are feeling about her brand of republicanism. Now, a few pieces of trivia here that I think you'll be fascinated by. So during the Republican primary, she was primaried. Obviously, she won the Republican primary, but nonetheless, the person running against her in the Republican primary decided to endorse Adam Frisch, the Democrat, in the general election. And that's State Senator Don Coram. He's the one who came out to endorse Adam Frisch, even though he himself is a Republican who ran against Lauren Boebert in the Republican primary. Also, this is my favorite part of the story, hands down. 538's predictive model gave Frisch a 3 in 100 chance of taking the district.
Oops.
Big brains, big brains.
Nate Silver, he knows everything.
Big brains.
Don't compare him to real clear politics. He's way better than that.
Way better.
And remember, Hillary Clinton's definitely gonna win. Oops. Now look, we had our old beefs with Nate Silver. I like polling. I think everybody talking about how polling it gets it wrong all the time. They're just misunderstanding polling. Polling generally gets it right, unless you're polling the wrong people. And I've said this 1,000 times, and even big brain Nate Silver can't get it through his thick skull. In elections where there are unlikely voters, like women who just registered to vote because of Roe, who never voted before and hence would not be a likely voter, you will have different results in the polling because of that phenomenon. I don't know why it's so hard for them to understand that, okay? And yet they're like, oh no, I polled likely voters. By the way, your poll of likely voters is very likely correct. You just polled the wrong people. You had to go, now normally it would work in a normal election, but in these type of elections, you have to go broader with your poll. But they just don't get it, they just don't.
I don't know, I feel like every election season, it's the same story. Like, this is what the polls say, and then it turns out the polls are wrong.
No,
like, that's been happening more and more often.
No, and there's a good reason for that too. The polls used to be like right 95% of the time. Now they're right about 80% of the time, but whenever you see them being right, you don't see it because nobody ever says, this poll was right, what the hell? That's not a hot clip, right? Okay. But the ones that are wrong is because of Trump and Bernie and now because of Roe. Because Trump and Bernie brought out unlikely voters. That's why he had that great miracle upset, Bernie did, in the 2016 primaries in Michigan, where he outperformed by 23 points because a whole slew of new young voters registered and then voted for him, and they didn't account for that. And after that, I would have figured that they would have put that into their models, but they're like, no. And that's partly because Nate Silver wrote a whole book about how, no, the party decides. And whoever the establishment wants is the one that's gonna win, and that's great, right? So he doesn't wanna move off that theory. That's what makes him biased.
Yeah, well, if you're not gonna get off that bias, you're gonna keep producing these horse crap polls that show that Adam Frisch has a 3 in 100 chance of taking the district. All right, well, let's move on because I do wanna talk about Adam Frisch and what his strategy was in campaigning. How did he get so close to beating Boebert if it turns out that he doesn't beat her at all, right? Well, it turns out that Adam Frisch really modeled himself as a moderate in this case, a moderate businessman and former Aspen City Council member. He attempted to appeal to voters tired of what he described as angertainment the angertainment that Boebert provides. He's also leaned into qualms constituents have had about the focus Boebert has put on her own image versus delivering for the district. A Frisch win would be a surprising pickup for Democrats in a place that Cook Political Report, a nonpartisan political analysis firm, has rated as solid Republican. And this next bit of information you're probably not gonna love, Cenk, because he's one of these guys who, should he win, wants to be part of the so-called problem solvers caucus, which is basically let's serve as an obstacle to any real policy that could improve people's lives caucus. That's what it should be renamed to.
Yeah, it's one of the most corporate caucuses. So look, guys, I'm very practical. So I think that, I know that higher minimum wage, paid family leave, child tax credit, et cetera, polls well in every district. And it would help even conservative Democrats win, corporate Democrats win. But they won't do that because of their donors. But having said that, in this district that is heavily Republican, I understand why he's running as a moderate Democrat. I understand why he frames himself as an alternative between left-wing Democrats and the Republicans to try to win those independent and moderate Republican votes. And normally I put it in scare quotes, but apparently there are moderate Republicans in that district, and they did vote for him. So I'm not begrudging him that strategy, and I know he'll be a corporate guy that I won't like at all in Congress, and still be a vast improvement over Lauren Boebert. And by the way, his strategy of running the idea that, hey, she's not even in a district, she's done nothing, she hasn't passed any bills, she hasn't even proposed any bills that would help your lives at all. That's the best message.
100%, I agree with you on that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.